board members from the Cincinnati Preschool Promise in the room, and I wanted to point them out and thank them for taking time out of their days to spend time here. So, Deborah Alsop.
No.
Terry England. Laura Sandergren. Dr. Yusuf Ahmad. And Cheryl Rose.
Hi, everybody.
All right. So thank you again for being here. I also brought a couple different pieces of materials that if you haven't already done so, please pick those up. We've got our first ever annual report over there. And then we produce a monthly dashboard that we share with the board every month. So the February dashboard is over there. And we'll highlight a lot of the numbers that I will be reviewing briefly with you today. So it's always important to start with the purpose of our organization. We strive to provide our youngest students with the best start to school and life, as Bill mentioned. We partner with the Cincinnati Public Schools to expand equitable access to high-quality preschool by offering preschool tuition assistance, and you'll hear more about the tuition assistance program. We also increase the number of quality preschool seats, and I have our quality improvement manager, Brittany Pina, here in the room. So if we get QI questions, she's the expert. And then we also partner with the community preschools to improve quality. In our first year, we were very much in startup mode. We put a lot of infrastructure in place because, as Bill mentioned, this passed in November 2016, but we really had to build out a substantial infrastructure. We put our board and staff in place. We put our enrollment and payment systems in place, which went seamlessly well. We completed our audited financials. We received our own 501c3 status and held over 85 community events that we either attended or organized throughout the year to really spread the awareness, outreach, which ultimately led to more enrollment. We also established a data sharing agreement with CPS so that we could track the children that received preschool services as they entered the K-12 system. We executed a service agreement with the United Way. The United Way serves as a unique role for us. They are our trusted entity, and especially in the very first year, provided a lot of the basic infrastructure until we had our own staff and board in place. They still work with us on back office supports. We executed that service agreement with the United Way, and promptly the United Way actually waived their administrative fee. They during the master agreement negotiated a $200,000 a year administrative fee that they waived in both 2018, and I'm very pleased to report again waived that in 2019. So that's a $400,000 cost savings that can go back into the program to help serve more children and families and providers. We also renegotiated our contract with Metrics IQ, and Metrics IQ is actually our service provider that does all of our enrollment and payment work. So we actually reduced that contract by $250,000 too. So we are continuing to try to be as responsible and fiscally sound as we possibly can with these public dollars. I, as Bill mentioned, started in this role last February, so I've been in the role, I don't know, just a little over a year. And one of my first tasks when I entered was to create a strategic plan. So we created an OGSM. There's got to be some P&Gers in this room that know what an OGSM is, I would imagine. But for those of you that may not be familiar with that term, it's objectives, goals, strategies, and measures. And it's basically like a strategic plan on one page. We have established 5 goals. They are to increase the number of children enrolled, to increase the number of quality preschool seats, to institute efforts to increase wage, to increase knowledge and understanding of CPP, because as I mentioned, we are still a relatively new initiative and need to really be intentional about how we inform the public about what our work is. And then finally, strengthening operations. That's really the core of making sure that everything works according to plan. Since my tenure, we received 18 positive earned media stories, including in print, Inquirer editorial board that we collaborated with CPS, the Cincinnati Herald, and I see that they're in the room this afternoon, so thank you for being here. Cincinnati Magazine. We actually received national coverage on the 74 Million website. We've done radio. I was on Lincolnware last year with our outreach and enrollment manager, Florence Malone, and our own Brittany Pina was on Lincolnware just earlier today talking about quality improvement. We did the WVXU Cincinnati edition, class in session. We've produced a podcast, and on TV we've actually been covered on every network: Fox, WLWT, WCPO, WKRC. And then, as I mentioned, we do have our annual report here. We disseminated almost 500 copies, hard copies, and we've also sent that out via electronic email to everybody that was on our key constituency list. Before I move on, though, I want to say we've had a lot of lessons learned, and I will cover some of those here this afternoon. But I want to say, first and foremost, it wasn't as simple as if we build it, they will come. We had a lot of work with families to help them understand the importance of quality preschool, what quality preschool is, what that looks like, why it matters, and a lot of work with providers to help them understand the benefits of participating in CPP. Any new initiative, has questions along with it, and what implication will this have on my business? I mean, I'm sure Terry England, as a quality preschool provider, can speak to that. So we've really worked in the last year and a half or more to work with our parents, our families, our providers to help them better understand the benefits of CPP, and for them to help us better understand how to go about doing our work. So I'm going to hit some high points on the 2017-2018 academic year. That was our first full academic year. And this, for those of you that have the annual report, is on page 4 of the report. Tuition assistance in year 1 helped 1,341 students that were at or below 200% of the federal poverty level to attend a high-quality preschool. And we define that as a quality preschool that has a 3, 4, or 5-star rating in the state's Step Up to Quality rating system. Just for context, this compared to 599 students that were served in Denver, which has a similar program that's been in place for over a decade. They served 599 in their first year. Now, there's a lot of differences between the way that the Denver program is structured and the way that the Cincinnati program is structured, but I think it's still helpful context. We had 82 preschools participate in tuition assistance. 41 were with the Cincinnati Public Schools, and another 41 were out in the community. And I do want to note that CPP is last dollar in, which means that we maximize all of the other available funding streams to stretch CPP dollars further. For example, in our first academic year, 57% of students received funding from other sources, and the average tuition assistance support from CPP was $6,100. This is on page 5 of the report, and this just gives you a demographic breakout of the students that we served in our first year. Year 1 highlights for quality improvement, which can be found on page 6 of the report. The QI program was designed with the assumption that on average it would take a minimum of 12 months for a provider to increase their star rating. So for example, if you're an unrated center, we estimate, and this is a ballpark because it depends based on your provider's start and what the barriers are that they have to overcome in order to reach quality. But if you're an unrated provider, it's estimated it would take a full year of working with coaching supports and et cetera to get just to a 1-star. And then so on and so forth. The QI supports that we provide include coaching. So we work with Community Action Agency, with 4C for Children, with Cincinnati Early Learning Centers. They are actually the providers of our coaching services. We provide curriculum and other materials as needed, and we'll support credentialing. So whether that's the Child Development Associates or other degrees to help teachers reach that requirement. We work with a variety of providers, including family child care, which basically are home-based care providers. They can either be a type A, which can serve up to 12 children, or a type B can serve up to 6 children. They also often offer multiple shifts. And they can also serve not only preschoolers, but infants and toddlers as well. We work with single-site centers, with multi-site centers, and then, of course, depending on the provider type, they have different needs. I will underscore that the biggest challenges or barriers to providers being able to step up to quality are credentialing, the time that it takes, and we have a real need, and not just here in Cincinnati, but nationally to build that teacher pipeline. And then also to actually realize what it takes to implement. So once you've learned what it takes to get to quality, how do you actually apply that in practice? In year one, we worked with 27 providers, 17 centers, 8 family child care, and 2 parochial. And 5 providers increased their stars. At a little over the midpoint of our second academic year, the 2018-2019 school year, we continue to build on the success of the first year. For tuition assistance, we have surpassed the total cumulative enrollment of year one, which was 1,341, as I mentioned. Our current enrollment to date is 1,466, which breaks out by 692 at CPS schools and 774 in the community schools. However, we have, in all told, provided tuition assistance supports to over 1,600 students throughout this academic year, 692 in CPS and almost 940 in community providers. We've also exceeded the number of providers participating in tuition assistance from last year. So as you recall, we had 82 providers participating in tuition assistance last year. We have 93 this year. We have 43 at CPS and 50 out in the community. And so as you can imagine, as we help more providers step up to quality, they become then eligible for tuition assistance, and we work with them to bring them into that side of the program. In QI, we currently have 95 providers receiving quality improvement supports. That compares to 15 providers this time last year. So I think, honestly, we got to give Brittany a round of applause. In addition to exponentially increasing the number of providers that are participating in QI, she also spent a great deal of time redesigning the QI process and rebidding our vendor contracts with 4C, CELC, and CAA. And I should mention, Brittany hasn't even been in this role a year. She was in a different role with CPP and moved over into the quality improvement space. And has just embraced the challenge and taken it on, so we really appreciate that. And we have 22 providers that have increased quality now. We have 10 providers that have reached 1 star. We have 4 providers that have reached a 2-star, 5 providers to have reached a 3-star, and 3 providers that have gotten to a 5-star. So that's incredible progress, and I have no doubt that with the 95 and growing community providers that we're working with now, those numbers will continue to grow. Our last bucket of work is what we call cost of quality, and I mentioned that we work to help support, attract, retain, and stabilize the field by working with wage. And so 73% of the lead teachers in our tuition assistance providers in the community are at or above $15 an hour. We also spent time last year hosting several forums with providers and other stakeholders to inform the development of a wage pilot project, which was launched in January. And we actually just awarded the first 47 Teacher Promise grants last week. And that basically provides a subsidy of over $2,000, about $2,000 a year to help teachers with whatever benefits or needs that they have in order to reach a living wage. So I told you I'd hit on some lessons learned in each of our big bucket areas of work. The first is under tuition assistance. One challenge that we face, particularly with the community providers, are that the program is actually structured for a school day, school year. And there was a rate of 85-81 calculated, but that was actually calculated for that 6.5-hour day, which is not, quite frankly, what community providers offer. And that's also, as I said, a school day, school year. So our community providers are not getting tuition assistance support during the summer coverage months. And yet, as you well know, community providers operate year-round and keep high quality year-round. So that's been a challenge for us. Next steps in tuition assistance, we're establishing a parent advisory board. We are providing parent education sessions. We are also establishing a provider advisory board, and we're just getting ready later on in March to host a provider luncheon. This will be our second annual luncheon.